I personally believe that our lives can be seen as a dark road. Ultimately, the road ends at a dead end before we die. Sometimes the road can be tragically short. Sometimes the road can be straight and far reaching. Some roads can have gentle curves, or they make confusing turns that no one can make sense of and are often seen as illogical. Blair Adams is a good example of that road ending in confusion. Blair Adams was a well liked individual who was a construction foreman in Surrey, British Columbia. However, his life started to take a strange and concerning turn in early July 1996. During that time, Blair made several strange choices, including buying a ticket to Frankfurt, Germany. Then he ended up turning in that ticket and ended up going to the east coast of the United States. The police said it best when Blair's thought process wasn't functioning properly. The road ended for Blair Adams in Knoxville, Tennessee on July 11th, 1996, in a motel parking lot where he was found brutally beaten and dead. What led Blair to this dead end? Was Blair hiding something in his life that he didn't want people to know about? At the end, Blair was running from something, and it finally caught up at the end of his journey. My name is Jeff, aka GCurse. Join me as we walk down the road and observe the case of Blair Adams in this upcoming installment of Unsolved Mysteries Commentary, the case of Blair Adams.
Anything on the camera yet?
Through the magic of editing, I'm going to have my headphones on right after I activate the video. Right there. There you go. So in 3, 2, 1. Ta-da! Yes, yes, I know. I know it's editing. I'm trying to be a smartass. Just go with me on it, ladies and gentlemen. Just go with me on it. Anyway, let's get this started. 3, 2, 1.
Strangers found him, half-dressed and battered, in a parking lot on a gray July morning in 1996. Scattered around the body was a mix of German, Canadian, and U.S. currency totaling some $4,000.
Okay, what they did not say here was, it'll be pointed out later in this video, but what they did not point out was the fact that on top of the currency, there was also gold and platinum. So the fact that we have a dead person here, and the fact that there was money, gold, and platinum strewn about, this was not a robbery. This was not a robbery, and law enforcement will tell you all the time that basically murders basically can be summed down, like, kind of they all have like a relating something in common. It's either related to sex, money, or drugs. So the fact that we still have money here, it was not related. It was not a robbery. So you can check that out. So that ultimately leaves drugs or sex. So
His wallet was intact, and its contents identified him as 31-year-old Blair Adams of Surrey, British Columbia in Western Canada.
Now, the one thing you probably did not see due to my camera placement and this being a little bit transparent for editing or for copyright purposes is that I don't think that they showed it, but his pants were also pulled down a little bit. It was like halfway down and whatnot. So something happened here. I believe it could have been possibly a sexual encounter that went wrong. If it was a sexual encounter that went wrong, and let's say he was propositioning, like, say, a prostitute of some sort, why was the money still there, though?
Every aspect of this case is mysterious. There's no logical explanation for anything he did. We can't say for a fact that this is why he did that, because there's no explanation for it.
We cannot come up with a motive for this man to be dead. We can't come up for a reasoning for him to be here.
Yeah, this is kind of what I said in the opening introduction to this case. Basically, something snapped in Blair. Something snapped in Blair, and ultimately sadly enough, the road ended for Blair in that parking lot July 11th, 1996. But what is more interesting is the journey. He made a lot of weird choices during this time.
We can't come up for a reason for him to leave Canada. Nobody knew he was going to take this trip. Nobody. This is an actual whodunit.
The investigation is not stalled for lack of evidence. As Blair Adams wandered the continent and left indelible impressions on everyone he met, authorities have now been able to reconstruct his baffling 3,000-mile journey in exhaustive detail. But still no one knows why Blair left home or why he ended up in Knoxville, Tennessee. No one knows whether Blair Adams was running from a killer or if he was just running from himself.
Well, okay, the death of Blair Adams was contributed to a severe blow that actually ruptured his stomach. The fact that you have all that money around him was not a robbery. His pants were pulled down. It could have been some sort of sexual encounter. Somebody had to have been there. So, yeah, he may have been running, but was whatever was affecting him, did it affect him at that point where he was killed? What do you guys think? Ultimately, this isn't up to me to decide. This is ultimately up to you, the viewer. I make these videos for you, the viewer, to kind of open a line of discourse. Is that the right word I have to give? Discourse? Or conversation, basically. Like, give me your ideas. Why do you think it is that Blair Adams died? Do you think that he was running from demons and that somehow he upset the wrong person in Tennessee and that's what ended up leading to that outcome? Or do you think that it could have been something paranormal?
Prior to his mysterious death, Blair Adams was a foreman with a construction company in Surrey, British Columbia. Those who knew him say Blair liked his work and did it well.
Blair did seem to have a normal life. He had many friends. He had a...
Which makes this even worse. It's like, okay, you have a guy who apparently was well-liked. He had multiple girlfriends and everything. He had a good-paying job. Apparently, he had a good enough paying job. He had $4,000 saved up. Plus, that's just currency. We're not even talking about, like, the gold and platinum. So life seemed to have been treating this guy pretty good. You know, he was working his way through the world and everything. So like what was it that ultimately led to that outcome, basically?
Job. He traveled on occasion, had a history of several different girlfriends, was well liked by virtually everyone that we've had contact with.
However, in the summer of 1996, Blair's cheery demeanor began to crack and buckle. Now his mood swung unpredictably from agitated paranoia to pensive withdrawal.
And that should have been a kind of investigate, like why did he start to have these problems?
Something was obviously very much the matter. He hadn't been sleeping well. Something was wrong. I asked him numerous times what was wrong, and he said, "Oh, I don't think I should tell you about it." And to this day, I don't know what it is.
Whatever trouble was brewing in Blair's life,
It could be possible that he, like they said, he may have had some sort of psychotic break. It wasn't to the point that he was like ranting and raving like what you would expect to see in the old classic movies where there's a guy literally bouncing off the wall of an insane asylum. But clearly his thought process, something snapped just not enough for him to literally be like somebody you see on the corner of a street just screaming at the sky. You know, he wasn't at that point. But ultimately, he had something happen to him. I would have looked in to see maybe if he had some sort of head trauma. Did he have an accident on the job? Did he receive bad news about a family member? Something had to have happened to make Blair start to develop these choices, basically.
Began to boil up on Friday, July 5th. He withdrew his savings and emptied his safe deposit box of more than $6,000 in cash.
Okay, I was wrong. I thought it was $4,000. It was $6,000 in cash.
And thousands more in jewelry, gold, and platinum. It was a first stop on his dead-end run to Tennessee. The next stop was a Canadian-American border. On Sunday, Blair made the first of several attempts to enter the United States.
And they'll explain pretty quickly here, the fact that he is a single male and with a lot of money, they would not let him through easily because of the fact that with that much money, he could be seen as somebody with a possible criminal intent, like drug dealing or whatever.
As he would so often in the last days of his life, Blair left a lasting impression.
Where are you going?
Seattle.
Can you step out of the car? I want to see some ID.
As an unmarried young man carrying a large amount of cash, Blair fit the profile of a drug trafficker. He was refused.
And this, even though I understand the logic of them denying his entry, because, the first thing that they said was because he was a lone male. I can't help to feel that that's a little bit of discriminatory against males who travel by themselves. Yeah, like I said, I understand the whole idea that he could have been a drug trafficker, but to me, the whole idea of like, well, if you're a guy and you're going somewhere with money, clearly you must be a drug trafficker. You're telling me that people don't go from country to country. Tourists, for example, they don't go from country to country with large amounts of money. Now, you got to remember, this was 1996. At that time, yeah, we did have debit cards, but back in 1996, we were still really using cash and checks. I don't even think that we really had the whole digital card readers that we now have at every grocery store. I think that debit cards were basically debit cards were mainly used like at ATM machines. Credit cards that basically they had that whole I'm not sure what you'd call it. It was like some sort of like a receipt machine where you put the credit card down and it would slide this thing over, like it would make like a carbon copy of a paper receipt, But we didn't really rely on debit cards for making day-to-day purchases. That we didn't rely on them that much. I wouldn't say until like early 2000s, like say 2002, 2003.
The next day, Monday, Blair showed up at his job, but not to work.
I need to quit my job.
This right here, I would have been really confused about if I was Blair's boss. And here I have a worker who by all accounts is like a great worker. He worked his way up from the bottom. He became one of my foremen. For him just literally come up and go, "Hey, I'm quitting. Quitting and all that." I would have been like, okay, number one, I would wonder if I did something wrong. I'd be like, okay, hey, let's go into the office. Let's talk about this. If I did something wrong, we could let's see if we could come to a mutual beneficial, arrangement. If you just need time off or whatever it was, we can give you some time off. If you think you need a pay raise, let's talk about it. I wouldn't just want to get, I personally, if I owned a job and my best worker was wanting to leave, I would not want them to leave without trying to incentivize them to basically stay. If they think, if it could have been that they found another job elsewhere, I'd be like, okay, if you like more money, we can work on that, But the fact that he was just like such a well-liked guy, and he's like, I'm leaving. If anything, the foreman or his boss, he should have actually reached out to Blair's family and say, "Hey, Blair just quit his job. I'm a little bit confused and a little bit concerned. As a family member, as his mom or his dad, or could you please talk to him? See if he's okay, because this is out of the ordinary for Blair Adams."
Why?
Need some time. Can I get my check?
Blair's erratic behavior continued. That afternoon, he spent $1,600 on a round-trip airline ticket from Vancouver, Canada to Frankfurt, Germany. His flight would leave the following day. But just hours after buying the ticket to Germany, Blair was again desperate to get into the United States.
Okay, so he already had a ticket to Frankfurt, Germany. You know, he wouldn't need to cross into the United States. They have airports, you know, there's probably an airport up in British Columbia. I don't know, I've never been there. But why would he need to go back into the United States if he already had a plane ticket to go to Germany? You know, this is not making sense. I've seen this case at least once a year since it debuted. I think this case debuted in 97, I think it was. We'll find out in the next segment. I've watched this case in and out. I've listened to the stuff everybody said. I've read the Wikipedia. I haven't read it recently, but I read it when it first popped up. And we'll go through that in the case wiki. Nothing is making sense about why he was making these choices. What is the logic to go and spend a little bit more? I think he spent $200 more for a one-way ticket than he did a round-trip ticket. I think that they're going to say that the one-way ticket was like $550, I think it was, and that the round trip was, oddly enough, was $300. But yeah, it's like nothing he was doing made any sense, and that's what has me confused.
He showed up at a friend's house in a panic.
Blair.
Kate, I'm sorry to come by so late, but I need your help. I really need you to help me, Kate.
Wait, it's almost 1.
I need you to take me to the border.
Take you to the border? It's the middle of the night.
I just need you to drive. I got a car.
Blair, I can't leave my kids.
Kate, somebody's trying to kill me.
Kill you?
Yeah.
Blair provided no.
Now, this is what has me confused. It's like, who would want to kill somebody who you know, was reported to be well-liked? And this kind of goes to the very end of the case, or of this installment, basically, where they find him in Tennessee with his pants half down. It could be that he was trying to proposition somebody. But if he was trying to proposition somebody, wouldn't they have taken the money once they saw it was already out on the ground? They already killed whoever it was that did this to Blair Adams. They killed him already. He was gone. He was no longer in the Union. The fact that they killed somebody and they left the money that was on the ground. The money was on the ground. It makes no sense. Why kill somebody and just up and leave? If you're going to kill the guy, why not rob him also? Yeah.
No details about the death threat. His friend was unable to take him over the border.
Okay, forget about it. Sorry to bother you. Thanks. Thanks anyway.
On Tuesday, Blair went to the Vancouver airport as scheduled. But instead of boarding the plane for Germany, he turned in his tickets, rented a car, and headed back to the border. This time, he managed to slip through. Blair was in Seattle by 4 p.m. He left his rental car, a Nissan, at the airport and bought a one-way ticket to Washington, D.C.
Okay, so we have a guy who was in Surrey, British Columbia. He originally went to the border several times, got denied entry, went back to Surrey, attempted to get he bought a ticket to Frankfurt, Germany. Later that night, he went to the friend's house to try and get her to take him to the border. Maybe his logic was, now I'm trying to make sense out of the pieces that we are receiving here. My logic is that I'm thinking maybe he thought that if he had a woman with him, that he'd have better chances to get through the border. We never know if that would have happened because she didn't go with him. He went back to the border. This time he got through. He finally made his way to Seattle. He turned in the ticket that he already. Why buy a ticket if you don't plan on using it? He bought a ticket and then he went to the East Coast of the United States. It doesn't make sense. The thing is, I'm sure that if you were to ask Blair Adams, if Blair Adams was alive today and you were to ask him, Blair, why were you doing this? You know, why buy a ticket to go to one place and then turn it in to go to another place? I'm pretty sure that if you asked him, it would make perfect sense to him. But for all the rest of us, we'd look at him, it's like, huh? But to him, he's like, oh, don't you guys see it? Don't you guys see it? This is why I did it, you know? And this is why I think that his family, the boss of the construction company really should have reached out to his parents, reached out to his friends. He should have basically put out like a red alert, you know, like, hey, there is something wrong with Blair. You guys need to get down here.
The one-way ticket was odd because he paid about $770 for a one-way ticket when he could have purchased a round-trip ticket for approximately $350.
Okay, so my prices are off a little bit. $700 for a one-way ticket instead of $350 to $400 for a round trip. Keep in mind, all of Blair's stuff is in British Columbia. Why would he buy a one-way trip ticket indicating that he planned on staying in Germany forever if if all his stuff is still in British Columbia? It's like what the cop says. I think he says it here or says it later in this video. The guy is not thinking correctly. There is something wrong.
$400, so it would have been half the price for a round-trip ticket as he paid for a one-way ticket. It just seemed very unusual.
After arriving in D.C. early Wednesday morning, Blair rented a white Toyota and continued his peculiar odyssey. Now he was headed to Knoxville, more than 500 miles to the southwest.
His travel was unlogical in itself. I mean, why go to D.C. to turn around to come back to Knoxville?
And this is the one thing I like to do with these videos. Here, let's do some research, shall we? Let's do some research because that's one thing I love to do. I don't get to do much of that stuff because of my job. I'm, late August through mid-June, I'm always working, so I don't really get to sit down and do that much stuff. Let's do this, and then I'll do this. There we go. Maps, Google.com. There we go. Okay, let's see here. Let's Washington, D.C. to Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm just curious, like, what is the length of... Wow. I was actually wondering, like, how far, how far is it? I thought maybe it was just like a couple minutes drive, like maybe... Oh, shit. Well, that didn't help. Hold on, let's do this again. And then... Tennessee. There we go. Okay, there it goes. I gotta leave that on. I wish you could just take this part off and you'd have the full map. Wait, can you actually do that with this? I'm just curious. Oh, you can. Awesome. 487 miles. And that's a 7-hour, 10-minute drive. Now, you also got to remember, this was back in 1996. I'm pretty sure that, that roads have changed. Highways may have been updated and whatnot. So it could be even a little bit, it could have been shorter. It could have been longer. I don't know. But he literally took a plane trip from Seattle to Washington, D.C. And then he went from Washington, D.C. He drove for over 480 miles down to Knoxville, Tennessee. Nothing is making sense here, ladies and gentlemen. It's like even the police officers are like, this is not making sense. Why is he, why would he do something like this? This is just out of the realm.
He had no business or no reason to be in East Tennessee. He had no business or no reason to be in Knoxville. Everything we can find out, he knows no one in East Tennessee or the eastern United States.
Hi, can you help me? I can't get my car started.
What's the problem?
Blair was first seen in Knoxville around 5:30 that afternoon.
Okay, keep in mind, he drove this vehicle he was standing against. He drove it from DC to Knoxville, Tennessee. Wait till you hear what the gas station attendant has to say.
Oh, this can't be your key.
Yeah, that's my key.
Oh, this is a Nissan key.
Yeah?
Well, this is a Toyota.
So?
Well, it won't start it.
Well, that's the key I've been using.
Where's the key at? Where is the key at? He got there somehow. He rented the fucking vehicle. Where's the key?
You have another key?
No.
Are you sure?
So the mechanic says, okay, empty out your pockets and let's look for it. He empties out all his pockets. There is no key to the Toyota.
Blair was stranded in Knoxville until morning, when he could get a new key from his rental car company. A mechanic drove Blair to a nearby hotel, where he once again made an unforgettable impression, this time on the desk clerk.
He had to, the rental company had to confirm who he was in order to send the key to Knoxville. And it did not strike the gas station workers as weird, as he somehow drove the car there, but he didn't have the key. What the hell happened to the key? We're going to find out what happened to the key later in this video.
Best way to describe him would be paranoid. He just was very nervous, agitated, expecting someone to come in on him even though there wasn't anybody there. I don't know who he was looking for, but he was waiting for somebody to walk in for him.
I think at this point, I think that mentally he was starting to really crack. The fact is that you'll see pretty quickly in this video that he's going to enter and exit this hotel several times. I think we were witnessing, in that security video, we're going to be witnessing a person literally on that razor edge, and he is just about to fall off.
Perhaps Blair was being followed. Perhaps he only thought so. The hotel's security camera shows that in the space of an hour, he went in and out of the lobby 5 times before finally paying for a room.
We can only assume that something was wrong with his thought process. He wasn't acting rationally.
After checking in, Blair pocketed the key. But instead of going to his room, he marched out the front door and never came back.
Why rent a hotel room if you're not going to use it? If he didn't go to the hotel room. It's like the cop said, something is not right. Maybe he was being chased by somebody. We don't know. Ultimately, and that's something I actually talked to a coworker about. I was talking to her about this case, and she said maybe somebody was following him. How tenacious is that person to know exactly where it was that Blair Adams was going? Like literally go from, Surrey, British Columbia, follow him all the way down to the border that first time, back into Surrey, British Columbia, to the friend's house, back to his home, most likely in Surrey, British Columbia, back to the border, get through the border, get on the plane. This guy had to have literally been on his back the entire time. If he was being followed by somebody, it could have been that he was basically being followed by somebody in his head also.
At 7:37 p.m., and it was the last time Blair Adams was known to be alive. 12 hours later, Blair's body was found in a parking lot about a half-mile from his hotel. He was naked from the waist down. Blair's death was as enigmatic as the last few days of his life.
His pants were removed in a way not like someone would take their own pants off, but in a way that someone else would remove your pants from you in a pulling motion where his pants were turned inside out. His socks were turned inside out. His shoes were off.
Which would make me think that it could have been a robbery. Like they were pulling his clothing off to check his pockets, to get, maybe they thought he had like some sort of like a second layer of pants, maybe an internal pocket or whatever. But that's thrown out the door out the window because of the fact the money and the jewelry, the jewels and the platinum and the gold, it's on the ground. It's on the ground. It's still there. It did not disappear. All of the money and everything was still there. So robbery clearly wasn't a motive.
And his shirt was ripped open.
$4,000 in American, Canadian, and German currency was strewn around Blair's body. Another $2,000 worth of jewelry, gold, and platinum was found inside a small pack. And there was one other perplexing clue. The key to Blair's Toyota had suddenly reappeared.
What? How? The only thing I could figure, but they didn't say it in the show. The only thing I could figure is that possibly he gave somebody a ride, possibly to the gas station. The person took the key and ran. However, wouldn't Blair have then said, "Hey, I gave the guy a ride he just robbed me of my car key," or whatever? Nope. But ultimately his key reappeared. It's like you peel off one layer of an onion and you're getting a whole nother layer. It's like what? Where did the key come from?
About 10 feet from his body.
We start looking at the angle of maybe a drug deal gone bad. That didn't pan out. We start thinking about robbery. Robbery was immediately first thought of. You throw it away because all the money's still there. We tried to find anything in his background that would have led us to believe that he frequented with prostitutes or that he even had any homosexual experiences. Anything to explain how he was found the way he was found. We found nothing.
And even if it was a prostitute, now prostitution is illegal in the United States. Since it's illegal, why wouldn't they just take the money? They already killed a guy. What are they worried that when if they ever got captured by law enforcement? Oh God, we're gonna have a charge of robbery. No, they already killed a person. Why concern yourself about the robbery charge if you already killed somebody? I'm thinking on the scale. I think murder is a lot worse than robbery. Why not just if this was a sexual encounter turned bad? Why not just rob the guy also? Why not? He's already dead. You already did the worst thing possible. You already killed the guy.
According to the autopsy report, Blair had sustained numerous cuts and abrasions. Police believe some of the wounds came from fending off an attack. Blair was ultimately killed by a violent blow that ruptured his stomach.
Hey, somebody's trying to kill me.
Although Blair had been adamant that his life was in danger, authorities now believe the threat was imaginary.
It could have been, but ultimately, his road ended in that parking lot. That's not something that can be debated. It's literally factually proven. He died in that parking lot. Something happened to him.
And that Blair's bizarre pilgrimage was a wild flight from his own inner demons. And yet somehow at the end of the road, Blair Adams wound up dead, just as he had feared.
I want Blair back. I want him well and healthy. I want him to knock on the front door and come in. But obviously, that's not going to happen. I don't know. Blair is dead. And it would be nice to have some understanding of why he died.
Yeah, like why? Why was this guy who was, for all intents and purposes, a nice guy and really well liked? Why did he deserve such an outcome?
Blair Adams was killed on July 11th, 1996, near Interstate Highway 40 in Knoxville. Authorities believe the fatal attack occurred at around 3:30 a.m.
Okay, so that was the case of Blair Adams. A real kind of head scratcher. It's like, like what happened? The guy seemed to have, had no enemies. He basically had it all. And ultimately, his journey ended, with him being brutally murdered, But anyway, so let's get to the case wiki, shall we? All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you are new to this series of videos that I love to produce, this is where I go to the Unsolved Mysteries wiki and I look up the case to see if there's been any real updates. Let's head over there right now, shall we? Okay, so here, let's do this. Okay. Okay, let's also do this. Blair Adams. Real name was Robert Dennis Blair Adams. Here, let me zoom in a little bit. There you go. He had a nickname of Blair. Location was Knoxville, Tennessee. The date was July 11th, 1996. Okay, we already know the case details, so I'm just going to kind of scroll through. Now, hold on. They're saying that this guy was seen with Blair, but I'm going to kind of just stick with what we saw on the case. Suspects. None known. Police first suspected that Blair's murder was a robbery gone wrong. Nope. However, that was ruled out because none of his money and valuables were stolen. They also looked into the possibility was drug-related. However, no evidence was found to support that either. Finally, they looked into the possibility that he may have been killed by a prostitute or pimp. However, they could find no evidence that he had ever used a prostitute. That, and like I said, the money was already there still. If they're going to kill somebody, then they're going to take the money also. On the night before his death, Blair was seen with an unidentified man at several restaurants in Knoxville. A composite sketch was made of that man. It is not known if he had anything to do with Blair's murder. And this is the image here. Case notes. This case first aired on the April 18th, 1997 episode of Unsolved Mysteries. Results. Unsolved. Investigators have exhausted most of their leads in this case and are still working on it. DNA was recovered from the hair found in Blair's hand. However, a match has not been found. Recently, his mother was re-interviewed. She claimed that he traveled to the American South to attend the Olympics. She also noted that he had previously been in a romantic relationship with a male roommate. This could suggest that his death was the result of a homosexual encounter gone wrong. It is not known why she never told the investigators about this information before. Maybe the mom was kind of, I don't know, maybe she was possibly embarrassed about what it was that Blair was doing, and she didn't say anything at that time. But as time passed, maybe she started to loosen grip or whatever. I don't know. Okay, so we have Blair Adams that find a grave. Okay, so let's zoom in. Robert Dennis Blair Adams. He was born December 28th, 1964 in Surrey, British Columbia. He died July 11th, 1986. He was only 31 years old. This is something that always kind of gets to me. It's like, I have been alive longer than some of these people in these cases that I cover have lived. it's just kind of eye opening, you know. It's just kind of weird that you know that I've lived longer than some of these people actually had a chance. He was buried at the Victory Memorial Park in Surrey Metro, Vancouver Regional District, British Columbia. He apparently his plot is in the cremation garden section. The inscription reads, Blair Adams on Bon Dieu. I don't understand what that means. Here, let's see. Can we see what this actually means? Let's see here. Search. Huh. This is not what I thought it was. I don't want to risk clicking that because I'm not sure what exactly that could be. It says French. Okay, let's do Google Translate. Let's do Google Translate. Okay, so it's detected as French, and it translates to the good Lord. Okay, so it means that it could be to the good Lord, and then it has his date of birth and death. Apparently, his mother, she passed away in 2020. Let's look at some of the pictures. And a lot of these pictures are most likely from Unsolved Mysteries, so you'll probably recognize them. A lot of these pictures I didn't take from this website. I used my video editing software from the video itself, and I kind of took some still images. I'm guessing that this had to have been like a high school or a college photo. Yeah, a lot of these are all from Unsolved Mysteries. But that is the case of Blair Adams. There's a lot of other links that you guys can click. I don't go through all the other links. It's just basically the find the grave that I do. But they even have an article on Unsolved Mysteries. They even have it on Wikipedia. Let's check the Wikipedia. Okay. Oh, here it goes. Okay. And as you can see here, it's just basically, it's basically what was kind of already talked about. Unsolved Mysteries, and then My Favorite Murder, Kate Crime Junkie. Okay. But yeah, ultimately, it is a unique case, ladies and gentlemen. The case of Blair Adams and his weird journey. Like, what led him? Here, let's do this. There you go. What led him to this outcome? They believe that it could have been a possible encounter with a person of the same sex. It wasn't robbery, but ultimately something happened to him for this outcome to have happened. Okay, time for the episode information. Here, let me do this real quick. We're going to go back to the Unsolved Mysteries wiki, and so I'd like to see what other cases were on the episode of Unsolved Mysteries that this was found on, or that this was part of. I should have said. So this was part of their April 18th, 1997 episode. April 18th, 1997. So, oh god, sometimes it's a little bit of a guessing game. Got to kind of figure out which season. Let's go with season 10. Let's start with season 10. Okay, so it must be season 9 because we're already in November. So let's go season 9. Season 9. I do have season 9 up. God, I hate this pop up. It's weird. Okay, anyway. Season 9. I don't see season 9 up here, so let's go down to here. 9. Here we go. Okay, April 18th. Okay, September. Okay, so we gotta scroll down. April, May, April. Okay, I'm just let's see here. Okay, I got a little bit confused there for a second. March. Okay, so we're getting close. Okay, here we go. Okay. Okay, so here is the cases that were part of the April 18th, 1997 episode of Unsolved Mysteries. This was part of episode 274 on Unsolved Mysteries. Let's see here. On Unsolved Mysteries, I think this is part of for YouTube. When I say Unsolved, I'm talking about their YouTube uploads. This is part of season 9, episode 17. But according to the televised information, the televised release of Unsolved Mysteries, it's actually season 9, episode 274. I'm guessing when they say episode 274, they mean the overall episodes that they ever did. Yeah. We have the case of Rosemary Altea. That was, if I remember correctly, that's a girl. That is a lady who I think she's a possible psychic, if I remember correctly. We got the son of Bobby Page Mylar, Blair Adams, Men in Black. Does anybody remember, Men in Black hysteria that came out in the late 90s? They really capitalized on it with Will Smith in the movie Men in Black. And then we had a update to the wanted case of Dennis Smith. If I remember correctly, I think, let's see here. I'm going to look into my live. I have these all on my computer. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can compare the downloads from the YouTube to this. Let's see here. So we had Blair Adams. We had Bobby Page Mylar. We had Men in Black. And we had Rosemary Altea. So basically, it's everything except for the Dennis Smith case. I don't see Dennis Smith. No, it looks like possibly Dennis Smith was replaced with the David Schublack case. I don't know which one that is. We'll cover it in the future, but Dennis Smith is not apparently part of the YouTube uploads, unless if it's part of the Dennis Schublack, but anyway. But that is it. Let's see here. Let's actually, well, while we're here, let's see how season 9 did in like the ratings. Let's see here. Unsolved Mysteries Wikipedia. So we were in season 9 at this time, 1997. This was definitely during the decline, in my opinion, of Unsolved Mysteries. I will go on record and say, like, the first 2 to 3 seasons, maybe the 4th season, but definitely the first 2 to 3 seasons were, like, the best. And the issue with Unsolved Mysteries is, I think, honestly, they lost their way a little bit. Let's see here, 1997. So it looks like that they were. Oh, let's see here. Let's see here. Let's go to ratings. Okay. And I'm guessing it would be we'd be looking. No, season 9. Okay, so they ranked 53rd place on the rank, and they had 8.6 million viewers. As you can see, it was a definite downshift as we got into those older seasons. And my whole thing is, I think honestly what it was that the producers of Unsolved Mysteries, they burned out, basically. I think they burned the show out too much. They made it too polished. I think that the oh God, what do you want to call it? That I think the show was best when it was very gritty. It had that gritty style to it. And as they went further along, they decided that they wanted to make the show more polished. And I think by polishing the show, it honestly just became kind of like a generic mystery show. I think that if they remained kind of gritty, kind of like really raw, I think that they would have kept the show would have kept being a success. But after a while, when they started relying, especially, towards the end with the Dennis Farina cases, especially when they started relying on like massive musical flourishes and needless camera flares and all that stuff, I think it really was the end of Unsolved Mysteries. Okay, so we have basically reached the end of this journey, ladies and gentlemen. This road we have traveled, and sadly, there has been no real closure for the family of Blair Adams. We don't know ultimately what happened to him. We do know that he was murdered, but we don't know why. But time to close the book. And we are going to be moving on pretty soon, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you know what happened, or if you have any information, reach out to the law enforcement. The family deserves to know what happened to their loved one. And like I said, all it takes is somebody to remember something. But we are going to be moving on to the next installment of Unsolved Mysteries next time. Next time, I present to you a case that was a viewer request. Apparently, people like me talking about serial killers. So, a viewer asked me, Jeff, can you please do the New Orleans serial killer? And I'm glad that they asked, because yes, I can, and here is a preview for that case.
In New Orleans, a brutal serial killer has apparently taken the lives of several young women. Police need your help before he strikes again.
Okay, so that is what you can expect next time. I'm going to get this uploaded, and I'm going to try to record and upload that following installment of Unsolved Mysteries on Monday. I have Monday off, which is Martin Luther King Day. I don't have anything to do that day, so I'm thinking about uploading it that day, or doing it that day, I guess you could say. But I just want to say thank you to everybody who watches these videos and likes and likes them. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to me to know that there are still a lot of fans of Unsolved Mysteries out there, even though you don't really see that much in the way of Unsolved Mysteries fans on YouTube. One of these days, I look forward to one of these days where there will be hundreds, if not thousands, of fans of Unsolved Mysteries talking about their favorite cases and whatnot. But it's time to go. It's time to go, and I will see you later. My name is Jeff, aka GCurse. Wishing you all a great day. Stay safe, everybody. Peace out.